Hey folks, it's Courtney. I'm back. I decided to make another video. Hopefully this one shall be more organized. I want to explain what happens during a natural death body removal. What I mean by that is, like, if someone dies in a hospital or at a nursing home or on hospice in their own home, that person is picked up directly by the funeral home. They don't need like an autopsy or anything of that nature. So that means a doctor or a physician is willing to sign the death certificate. So regarding like the removal process, who's going to call the funeral home once the person dies, and then who is also going to like decide, okay, it's time to call the funeral home. So basically the death has to be pronounced. The person has to pass away. There has to be no signs. Obviously, I'm a mortician. Someone else pronounces the decedents. I do not. I show up after someone's already done that, and then a physician has agreed to sign off on, like, you know, okay, this person was seeing me for a heart problem, so that's most likely what did it. They were, 87 years old, and so on and so forth. Basically, if the person dies in their house on hospice, they're going to have a hospice nurse that's there as the person is dying, or if the family, comes by Meemaw's bed and she's not breathing anymore, then they know to call the hospice nurse and have them come by. They will pronounce the decedent. They will, make note of the time of death. They will get in contact with the doctor. That doctor will then allow the person to be released. At that point, whether it's a hospice nurse in someone's house, whether it's a nurse in a hospital, whether it's like, the charge nurse or the head nurse at a nursing home facility or anything like that, like first call is basically just the first phone call that is the funeral home being told that, hey, so-and-so passed on. The family of the deceased is who gets to decide what funeral home the person goes to, obviously, unless the person has like a pre-need or if they don't, then it's called an at-need. That means the person has died and they are now in need of a funeral home. So fancy that. I get a call and they say, hey, so-and-so's family did some Googling, or they had you guys in mind, or whatever the scenario is. They will call the funeral home. So, you answer ABC funeral home. This is Courtney. They say, Mr. Peepaw has passed away here at so-and-so hospital, and you guys can come pick him up. Do you have an ETA? So we would let them know, because whether it's like a family's house, a hospital, or a nursing home, it's good for them to know when we're going to arrive and to be, looking for the people and dressed in black coming to knock on the door. So basically, the morticians and the funeral directors and all that, once they are called, it's called the first call, because they're going to want to get a bunch of information to fill out the death certificate. That has a lot of info on it. I have filled out death certificates here and there. I don't normally do funerals, like I've said before, my other one video. So I don't do that much right now, but I'm sure once I have a facility and I get an embalming room of my own and I have my own retorts for cremations, I'm going to be able to file death certificates through the state. So basically I'm going to need the doctor's name to put on the death certificate of, like, yes, this person certifies that this death was natural, and, it'll have the cause and manner and all that, and the manner would be natural. It's like natural, homicide, or unknown, I think, is the last. So they call us. They call the funeral home, the mortician, it's me, I'm coming, I'm knocking at your door, right? What kind of vehicle am I in, though? That is an important question. I get that a lot, because I would show up to someone's house and they would say, well, you're in a minivan. I'd say, yes, I am. They would then question me a little further of, like, why are you not in a hearse? Well, that would tarnish the integrity of the inside of the hearse. If you go on calls and you're putting transport cots in the back of vehicles, then you're definitely gonna be kind of scuffing the floors. Whether the person like purges or not also could affect the inside. I can explain purge here in a minute, actually. I guess, I should start with hospital removals. So I think that hospital removals are the easiest, because you just literally find the loading dock, which would be like these back areas where they accept like semis for supplies and different things like that. You just call the main hospital phone number. You will probably press 0. Just depends on which one you call, but wait through the options. You will then get an operator. You ask them for security. You tell security, hello, I'm Courtney with ABC Funeral Home. I'm here at the loading dock and I'm here to pick up, Mr. Peepaw or whatever. So they normally, they're accustomed to that. They're used to that. They have wide hallways. They have wide doors. They are used to people coming and going, like families. I hate to say it, but, most people are like, hospitals aren't fun. You're not happy normally when you're in the hospital, and that's totally fine, totally acceptable. I'm not happy when I'm in a hospital. So, I have to have a kid in a few years, and it's gonna be wonderful, actually. It'll be really cool. So, basically, I'm used to hospitals more because, some nursing homes even don't have super wide hallways. Like, they were something else and then became a nursing home. Or it's like a little hospice house, and then it's like a home that was like converted into a nursing home that can hold like specialty people. It's like a pretty common thing, actually. It's pretty fascinating. Basically, once you get escorted back down to the van and you load the decedent up, like, voila, you have a decedent in your care now, and you are responsible for them. So treat them well and choose your choices wisely. Like, don't be hitting Sonic, going through McDonald's, like, with them in the back, they're asking you want anything, bud? Like, no, they don't, I promise they don't want anything. They never say yes. Now we get to the house calls, and I think they are the most interesting because some people will think ahead of like, okay, we're gonna have to call so-and-so funeral home because that's like who mom wanted or whatever, so they will say it'll be fine that way. When the funeral home comes, they can just come in and out. But then there are others who don't think about that because they're concerned about their loved one, obviously. They don't really care about if the funeral home's going to have a hard time coming in. They want mama to be comfortable in bed, and I think mama deserves to be comfortable in bed. I'm not going to lie. So more power to you, mama. You die in that bed because that's what I'm going to do. I love it. House calls. Definitely kind of awkward. You never know. You never know. Where's mama going to die? If they're in the living room, some people think of that, and that's totally fine and dandy. If you want to die in your bed in the back corner of your house that you've got like a 1 foot wide hallway going 6 feet down, and then you have like this big of a door, and you have a right to die wherever you want. If you want to die in your bed, then die in your bed. I'm going to die in my bed, I hope. Like, you never know how someone's going to react whenever you're there. Two strangers are going to come in and put their gloved hands all over Peepaw and put their sheets on him, and it's kind of jarring, it's confronting, and you don't know these people usually. So I knew a lot of people I picked up in Texas, but that's because I was in a town of like 10,000 people. They're like, oh, Courtney, you do this now. I'm like, yeah, hi, I'll take good care of them for you, and go from there. Number 2, never go alone. Always have 2 people whenever you go on a house call. People die in all kinds of conditions. You don't want to be on the call by yourself, like cartwheeling Peepaw through a door frame, getting him stuck. The family's horrified in the kitchen. You don't want that. I have not been there because I have always waited for backup. I respected the decedent enough to say, I can't do this alone. I'm going to call my on-call partner, and he will be here in like 20 minutes. I've done that plenty of times, and as long as you tell the family what's happening, tell them why it's happening, they're pretty much like, okay, I understand, and I've never had a bad reaction to that. You just have to have informed consent whenever you're doing things. That's someone's loved one. That was a human. They were alive shortly before you got there. Because also it's someone's house. I have had like a couple of weird instances here and there on calls, but grief does strange things to people. I'll leave it at that. So how do we load someone onto a transport cot? Normally a little bit different than an ambulance transport cot. Like, it doesn't normally have the hydraulics. You have little like pulley levers, and it can raise each side, the head end or the foot end. I like when transport cots have 2 top sheets, 1 slide board that's like a really thin plastic. Basically, I want a fitted sheet on the little rubber mat that covers like the mechanism of the levering. So you put a little fitted sheet over it, 1 pillow with a case on it. So you want the cot cover, which is basically like a big blanket type thing. They are very expensive. I always told people like, I'm gonna make my own, I don't care. This is how I love to have my cots. And also, pro tip, if you have a transport cot, you should throw 1 small like hand towel on them because you're gonna use it for purge. I mentioned purge earlier. When people die, we will have what is known as purge, and that is a liquidy mucus substance that comes out of the orifices of the face. So you want a little small hand rag just to like wipe away any purge that comes out whenever you're manipulating the decedent and putting the sheet underneath them. Whenever I was running calls, blah blah blah, funeral home, this is Courtney, I was told, hey, you know, this is so-and-so funeral home. They would say, you know, it's at so-and-so address, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, yes, of course, I'm on the way. When I would arrive, I would get out first, leave the cot in the van. So I would knock on the door. I would tell the family, hi, I'm Courtney. I am with so-and-so funeral home, and I'm here to get Mr. Peepaw. We'll call him that. Say, oh, can you show me where Mr. Peepaw is? You learn to kind of doctor your language in a way. So wherever they're at, you say, okay, cool. I will step out real quick. I will go grab my transport cot. Go ahead and we'll get him where he needs to be. They would say, okay. I would go outside. I would get my transport cot out of the back of the van. Once I come back, I knock on the door. So this is where I'll kind of differentiate between if you can get the cot next to the bed and if you can't. If you can bring the cot in and get it right next to Mr. Peepaw, you lower it slightly below where he's located. With your transport partner, one of you goes to like the shoulder end of the decedent, one of you goes to the foot end. You would then gently turn Mr. Peepaw onto his side. You would take one of those bed sheets I mentioned earlier, and you would tuck it about halfway. You want the heaviest part of the decedent to be, you know, wrappable within the sheet. It also helps to like make them look all cozy. From what I said initially, you're gonna want to put them on their side. Untuck that other half of the sheet. I mean, this is very common with like hospitals and nursing homes when they are moving people that are like immobile. So once you have them wrapped up in the sheet, you kind of tie it just a little under the chin, a little bit at the feet. You slide them gently from the bed onto the cot. You then lift the cot back up to like normal height. You put the cot cover on kind of like a little blanket. So you kind of cover them up. You have the pillow there so they're cozy. You can use your little hand towel to wipe away any purge that may or may not have come out when you tipped them. Just clean it up. It's okay. And also the rag helps to dry out the eyes. Sometimes people's eyes, they don't want to like stay closed and they'll kind of peek. And if you have a rag with you, you can kind of dry out their eye. Will help close them, and then the family's not having to say goodbye to them and they're, you know, odd. Pro tip: if the cot cannot reach the decedent, say you can get the cot to like the hallway in front of the bedroom, but in that case you want that really thin plastic slide board. Way you're putting that next to where the decedent is located. Do the same method as before with the sheet. I personally would always put my knee underneath the decedent's back, kind of lower them down onto that slide board, kind of like, you know, bop 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 all the way back to the cot. Like I said, you have to inform the families. It's good for them to know what you're doing and why. I've never had families have an issue with it, and if the family wants to help me in any way, shape, or form, I let them help as much or as little as they wish, because I think that that's their right, because it will mean so much to them. Once you have the decedent back onto the cot, you will then step out. You will ask the family, hey, would you like any final moments, farewells to Mr. Peepaw before we get going? They normally say yes. I hardly ever have had someone say no. Or like I said, you want to have a clean vehicle. The families will come out and they will see where you're putting their loved one. It's not right. So keep your van clean, keep your cot clean, wear appropriate clothing. Definitely don't go on a call in pajamas. That's just not appropriate. And you'll learn that if you go to mortuary school, to wrap this up for you with a real nice little bow. Once you have the decedent in your care, main thing is to take them back to your mortuary and or funeral home. Get them put into a cooler if they're not going to be embalmed. I would never say have a good night when you're leaving a call. Just pro tip there too. Don't say have a good night. Families will say thank you for doing this, or I appreciate it, and this and that. You say yes ma'am, yes sir, yes ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Or say, I'm honored. Or say, I'm happy to help. That's all you have to say. Or say, like, I'll get them where they need to go. We'll treat them like they're my own. Like, there's all kinds of little things that you can come up with that aren't off-putting and aren't, like, weird either. With this all in mind, I think my next video about deaths that require an autopsy is like, you know, a natural death is a lot different than an unnatural death. I worked almost 3 years at a place that had a medical examiner contract. So I'm not going to go into the calls or any of the calls I went on, but I can give you guys some insight into like what picking up a body that needs an autopsy entails, just because I can speak in generals and I don't have to use any actual calls that I've been on. So anyways, I'm Courtney. I'm a little creepy, and I guess I'm still here hanging out trying to edit this.